Yes.
I am trying to, the event will start soon. Let's see what's happening. Uh,
It seems live on
it's
my end.
live. I'm parallel trying to put as well the LinkedIn. Let's see if what's happening there, but maybe.
You should maybe start like a series about how to come over technical challenges when you are doing live
That's
sessions.
true. Yeah, I like the intro always because last time I was talking to my partner and hello Timi and hello everybody. Welcome to this, I think, fifth session we have together on another three principles how to be kick-ass like Timi. I really
And
like.
you.
Okay, let's ask a new listener. And obviously the technical challenges, I think we are live there. I can see it with a little delay, but it's good. We are live there. Amazing. So guys, I want you to think before we start, why you're here today, because this is nice to talk. I know why I'm here today. I'm here because of you and because of Timi. I love having Timi in the same room as every time we speak, I get enlightened. So please share in the chat when you join along the way, or if you listen to this, maybe let us know why you liked it. I spoke with my partner last time, and she said, "Yeah, I joined it, and it was so cool, and see how you guys, interact, and there are so many lessons." And I'm sure some of you listening to this on the way back from the work and the car, and you're trying to figure out how to be a better leader among what's happening, because we are obviously almost in the end of Q1 and it is insane. I don't know how is it for you, Timmy. Maybe you can share some updates on your side, but I'm
Yes,
sure
we were just having a chat before we went live that this is my busiest month and the best month so far I had in my business financially. So there's definitely a major push happening. I don't know, something is up in the air, but I can feel that. So I'm booking myself into a nice hotel this weekend just to get away from the last few months because it has been a little bit busy on the client front. So what we talked about last time as well, having that, mental health as a priority. I'm actually walking the walk, not just talking the talk. So I'm going away from work for a couple of days and just chill for a bit for a couple of nights alone in an all-inclusive hotel, just to wind it down a little bit.
this is fantastic. A bit jealous, I have to say, but I mean this is very nice. I actually do the opposite. We were talking about it. I'm heading over to the US for an event, and we are planning as well with my partner to do a little wellness weekend. Actually, mid-April, I think. So I will follow in your footsteps, Timmy.
Very good.
So I'm very proud of you. I know it's hard, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you're kind of grinding it all out, and then you think like, hey, I keep working, I can keep working. So I think the corporate world is a little bit. You have your certain amount of days, and then you plan it out. And I just saw email today this morning that some people from last year, they have vacation days left. They have to take it until April. I mean,
I
you
don't
can.
remember how that works anymore. It's been a while.
So Timmy, tell me, how have you been, and what's been up with you since the last time we spoke?
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks, I believe. Things have really shifted for me. I have been focusing more on my own sanity as well. So, hence one of the solutions that I'm taking a bit of a break. But because I have been putting my own needs as the top of my priority basically for the last couple of weeks, things have been really moving forward. So a lot of clients started reaching out to me, a lot of, I don't know, pending payments started coming in, a lot of great successes that I'm seeing with my clients as well. So I think just by allowing myself to take a bit of step back, it just helped me to see things from a different perspective. And it's interesting how that works, but it just somehow it does. When you look after yourself, you see amazing results, not just in business, but just in general. So I kind of went to 180. I think it was not
Mm.
last time, but 2 sessions before when I was a little bit low energy after a long day. Remember that? I'm kind
Yeah,
of the opposite now. What about you?
yeah. I mean, first, congrats on that. I think it's amazing because I know you are also a lady of hard work, and you try to make it happen. We were just talking about some Facebook campaign and stuff you're trying. It's always exciting to see, you with the ads. I'm definitely behind on that, so I have to pick your brain on all of these things and how you do it and stuff like that. But for myself, was probably similar. I was telling you I was battling some cold and on and off, and I also see, and also talking about a topic, taking it easy.
Mm.
It is exactly that. Like, I want you guys to listen to your bodies and listen to where you want to go, because I know a lot of us out there and you listener, high performers, you want to go harder because the recession might be coming, and you see it, the updates on LinkedIn, company A laid off people, company B laid off people, they slowed growth. Sometimes it's just to scare people, sometimes it's really happening. And I want you to be brave, and I want you to take a step back and recharge. And sometimes it means that you really need to do what Timi does, take a day off, take a weekend off, take a week off, and say, hey, I'm not doing anything. Because if you don't, you know the consequence. You get sick, or you get, you burn out. And if you burn out, you're weeks behind, if not month. And we can't afford that. Unfortunately, in today's day and age, I will have to tell you, we will have to go harder. A lot of people will think that, just mental health and wellness will be okay. No, we will need more than that. We will need strategies. What Timi is doing, building it every day and working on yourself, chatting with friends that admire you. Don't do it on your own. This is something, like we talked about. If you're at the top, lonely, you're doing it wrong. This is also why Timi talked last time about, the CV. And if we take his, or if I take your CV away, who are you? So I want you to remind yourself, it is a long game. We play the long game, but we want to be effective. So today we have another 3 topics for you, and I hope you're excited. Timi, are you excited?
I am. I love these topics. You sent them to me a bit earlier on today, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to jump on this call with you. Really cool concept.
Want to introduce the first one, or
Yes, because that's actually quite something that is close to my heart. So I think the first one, I'm going to give it in a nutshell, and then you can go maybe more into expanding it. But what really stood out from your first perspective or concept about how to become a better leader by managing yourself is that sometimes you're going to have those days when you don't feel like that you want to go through certain tasks, or maybe you're having a bit of a low energy day, or you feel like that not that motivated to push through the boredom. And that was a sentence that stood out for me, that you kind of have to find a way to better yourself a little bit and just try to practice in a way every single day, even if it's just a tiny little bit, to push through that not doing anything or feeling like that you are bored. And the reason why it felt so close to my heart, because boredom is something that has been my, I don't know, mortal enemy. Like, that's something that has been chasing me all these years, that if I felt that I had a fixed routine, I get easily bored. I need a little bit of chaos, I need a bit of variety. I'm that kind of character. So if I'm stuck in a kind of activity or a task that is maybe boring, or I don't feel like doing much, I need to know, like, okay, this is something that is showing me that I can really push through this, and I can remember the last time I felt that way, so I can pull back some of that memory to know, what did I do differently? How could I win over this boredom so I'm not going to feel bored? Because when you feel bored, that's just not a good sign, is it? That if things are not exciting you anymore, and obviously you're not going to be able to enjoy and love every single little task maybe that you are doing. But when you are pushing through that, just try to figure out, where is this leading you? How can I do things maybe a little bit different this time, so I'm not going to feel bored, but I'm going to feel like I achieved something and I better myself a little bit. So to me, that was the key thing that really stood out, the boredom bit, because that was something that made me literally laugh out loud as as I read that.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant, and a lot of the stuff when you're talking about it, it's really related to skills. So, guys, this is what we are talking about this principle.
Yes.
Is really skills, looking at how you can improve yourself every day. And we were probably touching on this in the previous sessions a lot of times, and this is why I also admire Timi in this way, because I know you're very pragmatic in business, and you're trying to be resourceful and working with the campaigns, and being very marketing driven and buyer persona driven to know who you serve, who's your audience, and then you kind of tailor the message. And I think in our lives also the same approach could be applied. If we think about, the skills and where we want to be in the next 10 years, oftentimes we don't think about, okay, what are the skills that I need? In today's day and age, that's why we do these sessions. First for fun, and second maybe to learn from one another, and third maybe to have a little impact out there in a world that needs more positivity. But also just practical skills never go out of business. And a lot of times what I really believe, what you practice in private, you will be rewarded in public one day. And
For
I
sure.
think, Timi, again, coming to you and to you guys who might join along the way, I really admire how you were going about, building skills, because I know in the earlier career you were working as a CEO of a hotel group, and then, in a bank. And can you maybe elaborate a little bit? Why did building skills come easily to you, or was it really something that you consciously decided to kind of hone?
Good question. It was more like the first one because I have a very curious personality, and I think that was the going back to the boredom. Okay, so to try to avoid being bored, for me, that was always what made me want to learn something new or do something differently because I just think that life is here to be enjoyed and life is here to making the most of it, and learning new skills and learning something different that you didn't know how to do before, that becomes a bit of a fun while you are going through your life. So I changed careers many times. Like I had such a diverse background, as you said. Yes, I worked in banking. I did like resource planning, analysis, the full-on geeky stuff as well. But when it came to marketing, I actually self-taught myself because I didn't know anything. I didn't study it at the beginning officially. Since then, I have been studying, but when I realized that marketing is such an exciting area that I can learn a lot of skills because it changes so rapidly. It's definitely not a boring, steady kind of industry. That's when I really got excited about, and that's when my curiosity went like, "Whoa, I can do so much here." Same with being a CEO because you're overseeing the entire operations and you need to know the ins and outs of the entire company. Same kind of approach. I didn't know how to come up with a business plan initially or how to do the, I don't know, the revenue planning, all that stuff. I had to learn it throughout the years to be able to get there. So without learning these little skills, I could have not probably achieved what I achieved in my career and in my personal life as well, because a lot of those things that I learned I'm actually using in my day-to-day life, like budgeting. Okay, how can we plan for the future? For example, it's not something they teach you in school, and I think they definitely should. Or helping you understand things like how to communicate, and marketing was definitely an area for me to learn a lot. I always loved communicating, but I'm quite an outspoken person and I think fast. So sometimes I used to speak before I think, and by learning different marketing techniques and communication methods, it actually helped me realize that I can use it for my own personal development to communicate better, to match the other person's communication, so I can ensure that we understand each other. And it doesn't mean that you have to become an expert at everything. You don't have to be an expert of marketing, of sales, of human resources, business planning, whatever. But you can always find some ways to find a new area that you can improve on. Find a little, I don't know, extra skill set that you can add on top of your existing one. If you find it interesting, I have to highlight this. If you feel that,
Probably a big one.
oh, yeah, I definitely don't want this, then don't go down that route. I don't want to do accounting, for example, because that's just boring to me. So I'm not going to push myself to do something that doesn't excite me or I don't find interesting. Does that make sense?
It definitely does, and it's interesting listening to you. So I have loads of questions, but like talking about accounting, for example, I did that loads in my past, but I probably similar like you are. It's not like
Yeah.
the hardest area, but I currently decided to go into it again to challenge myself, and I used a bit different approach in my career because I kind of tried to be compatible with multiple things, and eventually maybe that's sometimes the drawback. If you focus on accumulating knowledge for the sake of knowledge, I don't think it brings a lot of value. So I know a lot about a lot of things and a lot about few things where I'm like very good at. But it's definitely interesting what you're saying about curiosity, because I think this is something that Do you think people have that naturally, or do you think can you develop it?
I think it comes down to your personality, because I know a lot of people who prefer routine and they prefer to be in a situation or an environment that is very familiar, and they just like to be doing what they already know. And there's nothing wrong with that, absolutely nothing wrong with that. So I think the first starting point needs to be understanding who you are as a person. Are you the kind of overly curious kind of person like me, who sometimes acts like a little child because, oh, what's this, like, let me learn that? Or are you the kind of person who is scared of changes or scared of the new? And that's perfectly okay as well. If you feel that way, that you need the sort of familiar territory, you can still develop new skills within a more quieter or safer or known surrounding. It does not mean to get comfortable in your in your location, but if you know yourself well enough to understand what kind of character you are, what kind of person you are, you can easily find ways for you to improve your skill set, either by being like following your curiosity and developing new skills because of that, or realizing that I'm very more pragmatic and I need to understand how this one works better. So figure out who you are first as a leader or as a person, and then try to look at ways what is feeding you as a human on a on a soul level, or mentally, or just from your heart. What gets you excited? That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's an exciting area, and I'm sorry for maybe drilling you a little bit on this, but I feel like this is a huge field and important field, especially now for the future, because talking about what's happening in the markets, the insecurity, the war, uncertainty, people are afraid about their jobs, and what we know is the human brain acts exactly towards that, and that means our amygdala, our flight or fight mode kicks in, and we want to sit on our butt, if you will, and don't want to do nothing because we are afraid that we will get into danger. But in things like this, in situations like this, and not even that, you need this curiosity that you're talking about. And
Mhm.
I think it's like what I see with you, and I've always seen that, like this, childlike excitement. And I just generally, like when we were talking before, and you have success here, left, right, and you really celebrate, and you can see that with you. And I really wonder if, because I can sense that it's like 50-50 kind of, you are born with curiosity or you can develop it. I really believe you can develop everything, because I don't see myself as a talented man. Some people think that, but I think everything I have developed is through hard will, and perseverance and determination. But curiosity, I think, is a big one. And do you think it can help people as well to build the key skills together with what you said, if you know your soul's purpose or your mission?
Absolutely, because you know, like, what sort of areas that are actually interest you, and if you realize that, hold on for a moment, I know nothing about how to do this, that's when you can, as you mentioned, that's when you can consciously develop your own curiosity to be open to learning new things. So if you don't have that initial drive in you, and you're not the kind of person who wants to be learning constantly new things, but then look at what areas actually interest you, either in your personal life or at your company that you're working for or working with. For example, maybe you're, I don't know, you're a HR manager, so you're mainly working, finding new talent or dealing with the sort of employee activities or things like that. But then you realize that, hold on for a second, I think I'm really good at selling as well. Then that's when you could actually branch down that route and try to, look into, what am I missing, what sort of skills am I missing now, to maybe be able to transition into another role within the company as well, into sales. And then you could look at, what do I need to learn? And then you can take more of the logical approach, so it doesn't have to be all like crazy impulsive like what I do sometimes, but you can make
And
it
that's what I
into.
was curious if you're gonna mention that, probably the
Yeah.
vision board and all the visualizing and stuff.
No, but I do that sometimes as well. For example, like when I was building my website, because now they have more than one, a few years ago, I didn't know how to do it. So I started researching it, and I didn't have back then the financial means as well to just hire someone to build a website for me. So I wanted to go through the whole process of understanding what does it take to build a website. And yes, it wasn't great, but did it do the job? Yes. And in the meantime, I learned, okay, these are the bits I absolutely don't enjoy doing. So then I found a developer to fix that. But then I realized there are certain elements that I absolutely love doing, and I still do those nowadays, like creating the articles or coming up with the user experience and all of that journey. That's something I love doing. But had I not tried it, I would have never known. And I think that's a kind of a key sentence there, that if you're not going to try even entertaining the thought that you could do something different, you're never going to know, like, is there anything else in that area or in that department or in that job role that I would actually probably enjoy doing. So if you can maybe look at it from that perspective, try to see what other things you could improve on that you don't currently know how to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's worth. I mean, it's powerful, and I think this is something which can come across as very boring for people because we know, like, we have our development curriculums and personal plans and stuff. And I think on a note of personal plans, I think that's also very important, guys. I would encourage you to develop your own curriculum, not just, wait for the crisis. And when shit hits the fan, pardon my language, and then you suddenly realize, oh, I need to be a team lead now. What do I do? So by then, hopefully, you read a couple books, and obviously, everything comes with practice and just trying it out. But I think what Timi says is definitely valid, and it shows as well in another point, because I really kind of feel like sticking with this just because I feel like skills are so important.
Talk about just this then, it's fine.
Yeah, I want to connect it to the next actually point as well, because I feel like I've done. You mentioned one crucial thing. So before we move to the next point, that you try to figure out what you're good at and drop the rest. I feel like I do the opposite. I'm very good grinding it out through things that I hate,
Yeah.
and that's I think there's like some middle way probably, and it goes with the next point, and maybe we can then kind of slowly switch into it, which is adjusting your boundaries. And it's all about kind of focusing on pleasing yourself rather than pleasing others. And I think especially if we are in corporate roles, we need to make sure that we make our points being communicated. You talked about communication, but that we also honor ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, as a sales or as a business owner like yourself, you really quickly outsource stuff that you can't do, because you figure out, hey, I'm very good at coaching, I'm very good at motivating people, but maybe I don't like to do accounting, like you say, and you give it up to somebody else, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't always happen, because just looking back into my previous roles when I wasn't managing my own business, of course there were like certain elements in my role that I didn't enjoy doing, or there was such a unrealistic demand for delivering results that I just felt actually super stressed. And I can't remember if I told you this story in the previous sessions, but it was at a time when I used to work for a bank. I'm not going to name them right now, but if people go to my LinkedIn, they will figure it out. But I was working for this bank, and the bank itself is a great company to work for. However, the department I was working in at some point wasn't the best fit, especially for me. And it was a really small team that I was working in, and that's when we were doing the analysis and really strict deadlines. So we had a lot of responsibility on us, being responsible for 2,000 people's schedules and roles. So as you can imagine, the weight was on our shoulders. But we had this one person who stepped in as an interim manager because our manager actually left. And this interim manager had zero leadership skills. This person never had a team before, never even had a team leader position. So you can imagine it wasn't a great situation. Not his fault, because whoever decided to move this person as our manager made a major mistake there. But what happened, the ripple effect of that was so devastating for the whole team. Literally all of us left within 6 months. The entire team left because of that one bad move. And this is where the boundaries come into play, because what this one manager did at the time, he used to come and shout at us. I'm not even joking. He would come and shout at our next to our desk if the report wasn't ready. And obviously that's not how you're going to motivate people to get things done. And when you are in that position, and I wasn't in a leadership position at the time, it was more like, like I don't know, a senior associate or something. But I didn't have the confidence to stand up for myself. I just sat there and I allowed this person who had zero management skills to shout at me for not delivering the work that I know I didn't have enough time to do. So that one moment, I still remember it. And if I could redo it, I would absolutely stand up for myself in an intelligent way without shouting back at that person. But this is an extreme example I wanted to talk about, because hopefully it's not something that those of you who are watching or listening are coming across every day, or hopefully you're not the one who's doing such things to your teams either. But these little moments will leave some imprints on someone's career and confidence and just the overall feeling about the job, the company, or the task itself. So try to not just set your own boundaries in a way that is healthy for you, but also try to look at it from the other perspective. Am I pushing someone else's boundaries? Like, am I not respecting, as a leader, am I not respecting someone else's boundaries? And the same thing in your other relationships with your friends, your family, your spouse. You need to understand that there are boundaries are there for a reason. It's not to push people away or stay away from responsibility, but there are certain things that need to be done within certain limits. Okay, and if you step over that limit, it's going to have some negative consequences. So one question maybe would be good for all of you who are listening to ask yourself, when you are in an uncomfortable situation and you're about to maybe push through those boundaries, just ask yourself, if I was on the other side of this request, how would I feel? How would that make me feel? Am I being realistic? What is it? What does this look like from the other side of this request? And that might help you to make some better decisions. Did you have some similar kind of experiences, or maybe not as extreme, but
I had a couple extreme ones as well. Obviously, I think this is the part I feel of a corporate career.
yeah.
I mean, a couple of years back, I was in a similar situation where I had I was working in a media department, and it's been like nothing like I experienced before. The way people were operating, the way they were talking to each other, it was like very low, professionality, and the way they were talking to clients and the way the business practices. I just was daily with my jaw dropped, and I had to do my business. And then I had my manager behind me, and then I had a team as well that I had to lead. And it was kind of, always most of I would say 90% of my career, I try to be really integrated with who I am. And obviously you make mistakes. Sometimes you fire somebody, you realize, hey, damn, shouldn't have done that. He won the competition. But you can fix things as well. So, and to opposite point, to play the devil's advocate, not just for the people, obviously, how you communicate to them. That's super important, how you make people feel. But also, I believe we learn the most about ourselves when we are uncomfortable, when we go through this. And in this particular situation where, not naming the company, I just didn't believe first in the business practices, second in the leadership, and then third, in the whole environment. Obviously, I tried to change something. I, said things or two, and then I tried to figure out, where could I actually impact first, the management, then obviously the colleagues that were direct reports that were just kind of having my impact. And I always try to shield them from the crap, if you will, that always corporate politics and whatever shady stuff. And I thought, is this really possible? But then when I kind of reflect now, years out, I'm grateful for this experience. And that's the thing what we never see when we are there. Like you were talking about your experience. I'm sure now you think about it, and you just said, I would stand up for myself. And I also see now with, more years under my belt, more seniority, I'm like, yeah, I was doing pretty good. I was stepping up for myself. I was a brave kid. I could learn that better. I could be more like that. But on the other hand, I mean, this is also what we were talking throughout these self-leadership principles. We beat ourselves up so much. And this is also what you said, with boundaries, we often insecure, not stepping up for ourselves, and then we just have regrets. And like you said, this is a big one. So for all of you leaders out there who listen to this and who trashing your subordinates, shame on you, because this is definitely no go, and it's never gonna be acceptable, even if it seems like on a short term. Because I think this is what we need to realize as leaders. We need to step up into integrity, into honesty, and you can lead people only by these values: enthusiasm, high performance, but not by stepping over them on their heads and showing how big ego you have, how big car you have. No, this is child's play. And I think this is something what we all need to learn more and more, because this is also why we do these sessions, that we address these topics head on and realize that it starts with you. So you can do all your courses, all your training, all your leadership certifications, but if you don't have these principles, this is why we
Yeah.
started with the self-leadership first, and understanding that it's all about serving and kindness and understanding what makes people tick and balancing it with the pragmatic skills, then you can really make an impact. So I think, sorry, you have one.
Yeah, I was gonna say that about kindness, that maybe some people, especially in leadership positions, you probably can completely underestimate the power and the effect of just being kind to your team. Because if your team is going to feel happy and supported, and it doesn't mean you have to be just super and overly nice to them when they are not performing. No, you can communicate negative or constructive feedback to them in a kind manner, instead of shouting at them, or instead of making them feel that they are useless or destroying their confidence. Because guess what happens if you're destroying your best person's confidence? They're not going to take on extra responsibility. They're not going to volunteer to help you out on the upcoming project when you have a strict deadline. They're going to feel that they are not good, they are useless, and you probably hate them. That's what they're going to think, even if that's not the case. But you had one moment when you lost your cool and you reacted in a bad way. If that happens, fine, you are human, we make mistakes, we cannot always be super conscious and kind all the time. It's likely that maybe you didn't react the way that you should have. Well, if you realized it, and if you have this sort of hunch or some, I don't know, like a little rock inside your stomach called guilt, and you were like, okay, I know I did something wrong, then be the bigger person and own up to your mistake as well. And as a leader, there's literally nothing more powerful than admitting that you also make mistakes. And if you can show that to your team, like, okay guys, I made this mistake, let's fix it, or this is how I fixed it, even better. Okay, instead of just putting the blame on something else or someone else.
Yeah, I mean, it's really about a principle that we talked about last time. It's taking ownership as well, as a leader, being kind of upfront. And it is hard when you're starting your career. You don't want to show your mistakes. You want to hide them, because you're like, oh, people will judge me and they will think about me. But older you get, you realize, hey, actually, it is good that Timi tells me that my Facebook campaign is crap because it doesn't perform. I mean, how else do you learn? But you need to start with the mindset and this mental toughness, if you will, to
Yeah.
embrace this feedback culture and work in this matter. And of course, it's hard. Some days you will, even if as strong as you are, it will touch you on some level and you will not understand why. So sometimes you just need to let it slip and understand that things just evolve with time.
I remember as well, I had early in my career when I received some negative feedback or if I did something wrong, I used to get so emotional that I would almost end up crying. And then it was such a bad situation to experience. But as I grew into my own character, and I'm not just talking about professionally, but as a person, as I became more self-aware about who I am and what I'm good at, I learned to accept those mistakes as learning opportunities. And that was, I think, a key sort of pivoting point for me to see things from a complete different perspective. Because yeah, no one likes to hear about like, hey, you suck or you messed something up, or but nowadays I much prefer that someone is going to be super direct with me and tell them as it is, instead of just pretending like everything is okay, especially when it comes to work. So in my position, that if, like, I give an example from an entrepreneur perspective, that I had a client a few months ago and I was doing some content writing for her, and she had a very, very super sub niche and a really cool character. But it was really tough for me to like crack open like who she was as a person, so I could do the writing for her in her kind of tone. And the first attempt, I was so happy with what I've written for the landing page. I'm like, amazing. I'm like, this is amazing copy. Like, this is
Very
like the
good.
best ever. And on our check-in session, she was like, no, I don't like it. So that was that moment when I realized, okay, I can make a decision. Do I feel like I'm being attacked, or do I feel like I'm not good enough? Or do I look at things from another perspective? Like, she doesn't like it, fine. I love it. It's great. Maybe someone else will also love it. But I'm serving my client. And if the client doesn't like it, fine, I'll redo it. Let's work on that a little bit more. And for the second version, she absolutely loved it. And it's on her website now. She's using it. So clearly it worked. But that's the sort of moment of truth there. Like, there are, as you mentioned, you can just talk about these things, you can go through these leadership courses, but if you're not actually like walking the walk, and if you're not implementing what you are learning or studying, then please don't even call yourself a leader, because then you are just following, you're not leading. Okay, so I wanted to give you this example because it can happen in many scenarios in the corporate world as well. When you deliver a project, or you send out a report, or you bring in a new client, and then maybe your line manager or your colleagues will say, actually, this is not the right direction. Fine, let's have an open and honest conversation so that you can actually figure out, so what did I misunderstand here? What can I do a little bit different? And it also gives you a great opportunity to do a bit of root cause analysis, to make sure that you can, both of you, both parties in that situation, can understand what went wrong, so you can avoid experiencing something like that again.
Yeah. I mean, this is exactly, I think, talking about a directness and asking for feedback and being really what you said, walking the talk. And this is what I realized as well with a lot of things recently. Like, I've been writing for years, and I was just mentioning to you, and then somebody
Yeah.
came, or a couple of people actually in the last few months, and say, hey, this is amazing. But when I think the hard work, the nights, and how much I put into it, and then you have some thought in mind, you're like, oh, it should be like this, and it will end up like that, and then you're looking at it years later, and you see exactly the point that you said. You need to walk the talk. You can think it through, you can strategize through, but seeing it as an experiment, as something you are playing with, you are flirting with, not in a sense that you don't give it your first and best foot forward and try your best, but really seeing it as a, first you take the load of your back because you think, this has to work, and like you did with the landing page, because
Yeah.
you're so convinced. And I think this is a good thing, because we have that in common, you and me. This, we can be very pig-headed, if you will, about
Yeah.
something, and like, this works, I've done this has to work. But then you go there, and then you're like, man, why it doesn't work in this situation? And you got to be humble, and you got to be
Yeah.
honest. And like you said, don't take it personally, and say, hey, it's fine. She doesn't want to hurt me. She wants that her landing page works. And that's, in the end, that's what she
Exactly.
probably pays you for, that it works.
That's exactly what it is. But you need to be able to see beyond the current situation, even if it feels uncomfortable. You need to look at the bigger picture and try to see, okay, where is this leading me? Like, what is it that I can learn from here, and what is it that I can do a little bit differently, even in my behavior, or if the client or your coworkers are not right and they are just being picky, then that's the time for you to set your boundaries. And if you are 100% sure that what you delivered is going to work, then it could have been a different story. So in my case, it could have been a whole different story with this client if she had just told me to create I don't know, a basic or a standard landing page. Different story, because then I say, okay, this is what works, do that. That's what you asked for, great. But it wasn't the situation. So depending on your circumstances, or on the project or the task at hand, take that into account. Do I want to keep redoing things, either for your line managers or for your clients, or are they really right? And that comes back to what we were discussing, that seeing things from both perspectives and trying to find what's actually healthy here and what's fair and ethical. In my case, I made a mistake. I put my hands up. Happens.
But you said, and this is brilliant. This is the summary for this kind of principle: what is fair and what is ethical.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a big one. Like, again, what is fair, what is ethical, and what comes down to, integrity. And I think this is like, if I believe in natural that human beings are kind, that everybody's good. If you have that, and if you treat people like that, you're still gonna get burned. It sometimes happens. And I think this is what I mean with seeing things as experiment. And I mean, this is the mental toughness we need to all work through our lives. Early you do that. And this is also why all this story and having Timi in a room, moving around, being in Sri Lanka, working in Barcelona, living now somewhere else, starting your own business. I mean, it's the school right there. It's everything you've done up to this point is really to try, fail, try, get up, succeed, fail, succeed some more.
It's part of the game. It's kind of like sales, and that's why, like, you know this really well because you had quite your fair share in sales as well, and so did I. That sales is definitely not for everyone for the same reason, because you're going to get a lot of doors slapped in your face when you are trying to sell things, and it needs a certain character, a certain level of resilience, and like realization that it's not, don't take it personal, it's not about you, they didn't like the product, or maybe you didn't do your best. But same thing happens in any kind of, I think, area in your life, that there are going to be scenarios when things don't work out. But then it's up to you. How do I react when things don't work out, or things don't go my way? Do I throw a tantrum like a 5-year-old, or do I just take a step back and laugh at it and try to look at it from a perspective like, okay, what can I do then differently? It's absolutely no worth stressing out about things when they don't work out, because it already happened. You can't change it, right?
It's true. I was just trying to make a nice summary for people and finish the whole thing. But I think there are definitely, Timi's right, because a lot of things in our life, and now we will move, maybe you can introduce the third principle, talking about this. Life is really about one step at a time. At least this is my humble perspective. But I realized that, like probably yourself, I want my life to be grand and awesome in the end of my life. I want to leave some legacy, and not because I want to be celebrated. People forget you very quickly. So if that's what you're going after, fame and name and being written in a history book, you can forget it. I mean, do you know how Mr. Gandhi looked like? Or probably I do still. I look at him actually recently on Mother Teresa. Okay, but if you think about a lot of people, they are written in a stone, or were famous stars. I mean, people forget them very quickly, and we tend to forget very quickly. But if you want to make an impact and elevate one soul, just like Timi does, I'm trying to do every day, here and there, I think then you are onto something. So talking about that, Timi, do you want to introduce the third principle? Because I feel like it
You kind of did already, but I'm going to jump onto that topic. So yes, what you're saying, especially when someone is in a leadership position, you can easily go down that route that you're going to have a bit of an inflated ego, or you become a bit big-headed. But when it comes down to your own approach, and you realize that you can remain humble in what you do, and you can create incredible impact or incredible consequences for people around you, and not in a way that is unethical, going back to that, or not in a way that is just feeding your own I call it vanity metrics. Like, don't do things for the sake of vanity metrics,
This is
because
brilliant. I love it.
they fade, right? Like, and that's my whole love and hate relationship with social media as well. Not LinkedIn specifically, because that's still quite okay, but like Instagram, for example, which is completely all about feeding the vanity metrics for someone, and it's not really creating real value unless it's done in a different and more authentic way. But I think right now we are living in a time, especially in business as well, that a lot of people are trying to portray their, I don't know, like this perfect persona. Like, I'm this entrepreneur who does nothing and I make 6 figures in 20 days. Like, come on, like, we keep seeing these things, or we keep getting pitched by companies, or, you keep seeing maybe job interviews. That's a great example as well. On job interviews, it probably comes up like, yes, I'm all perfect. I never make mistakes. This is all great. Like, nobody exists who is perfect like that. It's just impossible. It doesn't happen. We are human in a human body. We make mistakes. So the more humble you are about that, the easier it will be for you to not stress out about things when things don't really go your way. But yes, have the intention to create something that is meaningful in your day-to-day life, in your family. Maybe you have kids, you already did something great. You are leaving something behind. But if you don't have kids, then you can do that by being nice to your community, being I don't know, helpful at work, or coming up with cool innovative ideas as a leader, or reshaping the whole organization that will impact maybe many generations to come, or saving a business from going bankrupt. There are many, many ways how you can actually make an impact without going, look at me, I did this. Okay. If that's what drives you, if you are personally like desiring that external validation, then I would probably recommend you to find some support, go through therapy, and I mean it the nicest possible way, please, or work with a coach. Because if you feel that you need the external validation, something is not making you feel fulfilled in what you do. Because if you truly love your life the way it is heading and the way you are enjoying your life, you, excuse my language as well up front, you're not going to give a shit about what's happening around you, because you're just doing your thing, you're making an impact, you're building communities maybe, or you're creating value, and you're not going to have to rely on these kind of external validation, the vanity metrics. That's my view. So if as a leader, and nothing wrong with going through therapy, please do it. I think it should be mandatory. I went through therapy many years ago, best few months of my life, it was amazing. It should be mandatory. So if you feel, and I'm serious about this, not joking, if you really feel that you have this constant need of wanting other people to recognize your results, or you are craving that little pat on the back and you feel deeply sad if you're not getting it, try to figure out why you are relying on that burst of happiness coming from an external factor. I went a little bit deep with this one. I
No,
wasn't planning to.
I think it's also on a line of LinkedIn and the business. I feel like this is actually the foundation, and I really have a moment where I had to have to pause. I had to pause myself listening to you, and this is why I hope you guys as well. If you're listening to this, maybe later on a podcast, talking about podcast, or somewhere else in a different setting, I think it's very important point, because this is something I realized last year as well, and years earlier when I went actually through some of this trauma myself at work and through some of the leaders. Because I think one thing that you mentioned, and obviously we didn't dive into it with your experience at a bank, I'm sure there was a lot of trauma. And again, this is not, a therapy session, but I think we all have that to some extent. And the thing is, it makes you less, even you want or don't want, it makes you less effective leader. And that's that truth right there. Because if you don't know what you don't know, you don't know. I know this was a little bit difficult, but
Yeah.
if you have a coach, if you have like these discussions, just now listening to Timi, I'm thinking, hey, what areas do I need to shed some light on so that I'm actually more effective? And the thing is, we are so much in our heads. I saw my calendar today. I was just back to back in meetings. You probably the same. And I'm always looking forward to these discussions because I know it adds value. And a lot of you right there and out there probably don't take enough time for this, to listen to conversations like this. And then you wonder why you're not a good leader, and maybe why things are happening in your team or maybe to you, because you don't take enough ownership of understanding, hey, I don't actually like this. I want to be more like that. I want to be a better leader. I want to be effective, or I need to do some skills. And talking about the last point that you mentioned about kindness and really inflated ego, the opposite of what you said is really also being a people pleaser. And this is what we talk in a second point, where you don't really take enough time and effort to understand yourself as a
Yeah.
human being, right?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Because if you're constantly just out there trying to please others around you, then where do you come into the picture? Okay. Where are you? It's like, what I say is like, it's not my wisdom, but I think it's a really cool way of saying this. It's this lady that she's a super powerful entrepreneur as well. Like she said this, that sometimes and you can choose if you want to be like living your life as if you were listening to a cover band and you're just covering someone else's songs, or do you want to be the lead singer. And I think it's such a cool way of explaining this, that if you are constantly just pleasing others, you are not singing your own songs, okay? You're just doing the cover songs. But if you finally realize, like, who am I? What do I like? How can I be a better leader? How can I be a better human by honoring who I truly am and allowing that to come to the surface, even from my 9 to 5 job at work, because I love it and I can be nice to people. That's when you can start singing your own song instead of relying on someone else's band to come up with something that kind of resembles what you're about. So I think if we gotta I have to say one little piece of wisdom going through this trail of thought is just learn how to sing your own song. Like, what do you want your life to be about? What is the song of your life? Okay.
Word. I'm trying to sum up your wisdom quickly. I know I butchered it a little bit, but guys, I think this is really the truth right there, where it's about character.
Mm.
I really believe truly, and especially you mentioned the sales and the marketing, that first, and I think I read it somewhere, but I figured it the hard way. People buy first how you make them feel.
Hmm.
And why I like to hang out with Timi is how she makes me feel. Maybe she doesn't know it. Maybe I never told her, but because I know that when I'm in her presence, I get these aha moments where I know that I'm learning, and that I, even though I've heard it maybe 100 times, that I have the learner's mindset, and that she's kind, that she's actually doing the work herself. And it's not just talking about stuff and saying, oh, I'm smart, I'm this, but I'm humble. And I just see Marta, you joined. Thanks.
Really good point she's mentioning, actually.
Yeah.
Really valid.
And you're absolutely right, because we a little bit digressed here to the character, and I definitely gonna quickly get back to your point, Marta, because I think you're absolutely right about the culture and feedback and people. But I really think that when I see it, for example, in my company now, because that's also why I joined recently, is because of the leader, and I mentioned it actually a couple of weeks ago, and how the culture is working. And of course, it's not about perfection, but it's about somebody who's kind of leading the herd, if you will, or like Timmy with your clients, and you make them feel. I know that people who I hang out with often, Timmy is one of them, is because how I make them feel, because I care, because I want them to grow, I want them to stretch, but also because I know that together we are stronger, and together we can accomplish a little more. So this is also why when you focus, and I honestly think this is gold, when we focus on our character, everything else falls into place. I see it with myself. I was a lot of times doubting in my earlier career, I should do this, should I do that, how I should be. But earlier I realized, like you said about it, people pleasing, I want to be myself, and I actually
Mhm.
care about people, and this is who I am. I don't need to pretend to sell somebody that I am this person or that person to win them over. No, I actually genuinely cared, and oftentimes I won these deals because I cared about people and they became my friends. It's not always the case that it has to be like that. Yeah, so on the point of Martha, do you want to say something to me to that?
Yes, I could not agree more. So I'm not sure if everyone can read it, but what she's saying basically that yes, it would definitely people would need less external validation or recognition if they were giving more regular feedback and encouragement. Absolutely, I could not agree with you more with you, because I think that is definitely a cultural problem in especially in the corporate world, that people are so constantly busy, they are so fixated on results, that always the last thing on the bottom of the list is going to be employee engagement, team morale, and just properly developing their people. Even with big corporations that do have formal development plans, they do it because they kind of have to tick it off their lists, do the performance reviews, give them a rating, here's your development plan, bye. But you don't, at least me, I haven't come across that many companies. I know there are some great companies out there who do pay attention to their employee well-being, but if companies are overlooking these elements, like, my people need to be told like what's happening, like how they are doing, so they can become better, or they can learn new skills, what we talked about at the first point. If they don't know what they need, or if they don't know how they are doing, Of course they're going to have to rely on those external recognition because that needs to be done. But if it becomes a natural process of your day-to-day activity, why wait 3 months to give someone an appraisal or a review? If someone did a good job and it becomes the norm, then the person is not going to be craving these recognitions and these sort of appraisals, because it's part of the company culture that if you do a good job, it's going to be noticed, and you don't have to be like waiting and waiting and waiting for your manager or your colleagues to appreciate you. Another example, actually, on the different department in that bank I worked, which was completely extreme other side of things. They used to have this cool thing that in our internal system we could send each other appreciation cards for the job well done, and it was such a cool little incentive. It cost nothing for the company to do that. It helped us to feel appreciated at work, and it came from your own peers. You know, you could say thank you to someone who helped you brainstorm. You could say thank you for someone for bringing you a coffee while you were doing overtime, or little things. And those were, they really went the extra mile. So if you create a company culture that has these little extra, I don't know, I don't even know what to call them. It's not even recognizing, it's just being nice. Just be a decent human to the people that you're working with, and treat them as if they were your best friends. If your friend is going to like do something for you, you're going to thank them for that. Or if they do something bad, you're going to tell them as well, straight up front. I'm not saying you should be best friends with everyone at work. It's not going to happen, obviously. But if you just try treating your colleagues as if they were your friends, you can be a lot more honest, and you're going to be recognizing what they are doing in return, I think, a lot, maybe more frequently. I don't know if that makes sense, but I really like that
Yeah.
coming from Martha, because, yeah, completely agree with her.
And I think also, Marta, if I may add 2 cents to that, and I mean, by all means, I'm sure you probably know the answer to this, and you just kind of stating the fact, which is actually quite accurate from what I've seen. And also thinking about myself when I was earlier in my earlier career, when I thought, oh, I need this, I need that title, I need to do this. And now I'm thinking, damn, wish I would think differently 20 years ago. But on the other hand, this is why we are learning this, and this is why we are doing these sessions, because it would be empty to talk about something we didn't go through ourselves. So I
So I
also
want
think,
to tell you this little secret as well about these
oh,
titles.
please, please,
Top secret. We need to go through this thing to feed our ego. Okay, we need to go through that, like,
there
I
it
want
is.
this title, I want to be head of this and director of that. And because if you are genuinely, for some whatever reason, you crave it, go for it. And then once you hit it, you'll be like, ah, is that it? Like, that's not making me feel happy. So yeah, what we're saying probably is something that a lot of people can take away with them. But I'm 100% sure that people will still make some mistakes. Perfectly fine. Don't beat yourself up. If you're not going to follow through all of this advice, just take away what works for you. But I think that's usually what happens. If you are trying not to feed your ego and not to lead with your ego, I think that's the expression here, you probably have already maxed out these meaningless sort of milestones in your life. Like, I want to run a company, I want to have my first 1 million, etc. Until you've done them, you can't really let go of that ego approach, I think. I might be wrong. Okay.
Yeah, I also think it comes back, and I still will come back, Marta, to, oh, we are really tight with time, but maybe we go a little bit over it. I think this is an exciting topic. It comes to maturity and really knowing what you want, because this is what you said. I made my experience, you made your experience as a CEO, and I thought, wow, exactly like you. I thought, this is it. And
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even took it through, like, all the accelerator series A, B, C. I actually wanted, and I had some potential investors, and I thought, do I really want that? And then I figured, a lot of people, I just saw a guy on LinkedIn, and I actually requested to meet him, and he like founded and like 10 companies, and he earned like, made like 100 million or something. And I thought, wow, this is impressive. But then I thought, that's probably not me. Like,
Yeah.
I know that eventually at some point might be again a CEO, but on the other hand, it is on my own terms. And this is like what you said, Marta. It's not about external recognition. It's because I want to make this world a better place. And sometimes, and this is also, again, I know I've said it a couple times, I admire Timmy because you do it from your point of view. You're still CEO of your own company, but you are like there like a partner for your clients. And this is what I see as well with all these sessions that I'm doing here. Because I've made this experience, now I can realize, hey, these titles doesn't make you feel better. It's
Mhm.
good because you do it, maybe you get a better paycheck and you do this, you do that, but in the end, it is like you said, it's encouraging the feedback culture. And also the last point to that, Martha, I think I realized people are very never gonna receive the feedback fully if they feel scared. Like
Mhm.
to your point, Timmy, about the bank, if somebody will shout at you, and I experience it too, or will diminish you, and you know that you could be laid off, you will never show the full self, and you will never fill in the questionnaire with, hey, you actually have a problem with giving feedback. You will never say that. So
Yeah.
this is also why it's so important to have a manager who actually makes you feel safe. And I can tell you, this is rare. This is
Mm.
very rare in a corporate world. People who get this, I don't know. I could count them on one hand, if not even less. So
It's sad. So let's
I'm
change that. Change
sorry.
the system from within.
But because we're entering the last mile as well of this, Marta, I don't know if you're still with us or somebody else, guys, because I have a feeling that because last time my partner was there as well, and I'd actually never seen she was on, and a couple more people. So if anybody's there and there are questions, because that's normally what we didn't do, are there any questions for us, for Timmy or for me, or something you would we didn't talk about because it became a bit of a monologue, and I think this is brilliant. But are there any questions actually, or Timmy, maybe some last things before the questions roll in, or if there are no questions, also okay.
I think we mentioned. Oh, cool. Marta's still with us. um, I think we mentioned a lot of deep topics. So I'm also going to rewatch this conversation because I think we like touched on many different points here, and there's a lot of deep truths that actually have come up. So it would be definitely great for me as well to re-listen to this conversation. And I think I mentioned this maybe last time too. Sometimes it's best to take our own advice, and I actually do that sometimes. Sometimes I read some of my articles, I watch some of my videos back, and I realize like, oh, hold on, I'm great giving out great advice, but I'm not actually doing it for myself. So I think it would be great as well to listen back to this conversation because we went a little bit deep.
Yeah, and yeah, on that, definitely. I think also on that note, guys, if you want to rewatch it, I think it's possible to rewatch it on LinkedIn. We might do it. I'm also uploading it on separate format in different settings. So if you want to rewatch the previous ones, give me a shout. That's still in a progress. I think we have 3 recordings now, and then the first ones I think we didn't record, so I might need to do that separately, or we do it separately. But if there are any questions, please ping us. I have one question for Timi, actually.
Ooh, you are the lot of questions today. I like this.
I like the Miss Curiosity. So,
Tell me.
when you look ahead and you're learning, you're applying these principles, where do you see, for people, the biggest potential? I know we covered a lot. We covered a lot of these, from deep to practical skills. But is there some universal truth that you would tell to people? Say, hey, if you're really starting out, you in your self leadership journey, and you just joined, you didn't see the previous sessions. Where would you encourage people to go first or start first?
Definitely get them to figure out like what is it that they don't know. Okay, so if you recognize that, okay, these are my weaknesses, and be humble enough to recognize that, like, what are the things that you are not good at, so that you can start building a team around you to balance you out, and always recruit and always find people around you based on your weaknesses. That's my top tip for it. Doesn't matter if it's your own company, if it is your team within a corporate, or whatever that you are doing. Understand the sort of weaknesses that you are dealing with, and it's fine. Like, I'm really bad at administrating. It's not my thing. So my first recruit was hiring an assistant, but I started 2-3 years ago. So if you know what your weaknesses are, what your blind spots are, try to find people around you that can support you with that. And I always recommend, try to find one person who's absolutely has the the most outspoken character and probably will give you a bit of a hard time because they are too loud, too outspoken, they are full of ideas, but you need that one character around you. You need that one person to stand up to you, to be brutally honest with you, and put you in your place as a leader. Because if you have that character who's brave enough to stand up to a leader, that's your replacement, that's your successor. Pay attention to that person and develop them into the next leader.
Yeah, I think this is the end of the session. I definitely think this is the wisdom of Timi Orosz, the princess with a giant sword, and I have a feeling your sword is growing every time I speak to you.
It's a rocket now, or I don't know, a
No, guys,
spaceship.
absolutely. Please focus on building your successors, building the team, generate positivity. Focus, even if you feel like you don't have an impact, please don't believe that. You got your potential. I know, Marta, you're in a room, and I really honestly shout out to you, shout out to all of you guys who've been showing up. I have some exciting stuff, but I will tell you some other time, next time, if you join.
Oh, let's see.
I need to talk first to you, so guys, please get excited. But absolutely, Marta. I will. You can rewatch it, I think, on LinkedIn after this session, and otherwise, if you want, I can send you a link to the community where you can rewatch the rest of the program. On that note, so guys, I want to thank you really. I want to thank Timi. I want to thank for your engagement and questions. Also, Marta showing up even if you were busy before and just made it. So thanks so much for the energy and the questions. And please keep inspiring where you are, Marta. I think you got a big role where you are. You got to talk to a lot of people. You're probably the gateway to whatever you are, to, you know, improving the culture, improving the recruitment, looking at where the gaps lie. So please do
change the system.
Yeah, I was looking for the right word, but I think it is exactly what you said to me. You know, you can slowly use the power of your character and your positivity right where you are. So definitely use that and keep coming back, because I really think there is never enough to listen to conversations like this, and stay excited. Marta, please, if you have more people to bring with you, please do. I think I just had some last time talk with somebody else. They also couldn't make it, unfortunately, today, because they said, hey, actually our team should come listen to this. So thanks again. And Timi, I don't know, any final remarks?
Just thank you for making this happen. I know I keep saying this, but if it wasn't for you, like, we would not be having this conversation. So even if we make an impact on 2 people or 3 people, I'm already happy with that, because we ended up maybe creating a positive ripple out there. So that's on you, 100% on you. So thank you for bringing us all together.
All right. So we are a little bit over time, guys. Thank you so much, Marta. Thank you, gals, to be corrected. And please, I'm just going to highlight that. Thank you so much as well, Marta. Thank you. And thank you, Timi. Please stay awesome, guys. And looking forward to see you soon. So until the next time, stay legendary. Bye-bye.